What's up? Today I'd like to address one of the very common questions that you guys have asked me. But first let me ask you, what do you think about this position? It is white to play. Is it good for white? Is it good for black? Is it about equal? What do you think? Now, spoiler, white is achieving here a winning position within just 2 moves. And if it's not obvious for you how to do that, that's great, because that's exactly what you're going to learn within the next couple minutes. But first off, how do I even went to this position? Well, some time ago I recorded videos about black bringing out the bishop this way, pinning your knight down to the queen. And I shared with you different strategies and tactics to counter that pin effectively and to create a strong attack. But many of you told me in comments that, Igor, it's all good, but, my opponent simply traded on f3 at some point, and that is all over, white cannot attack after that. So I wanted to address that question because it's a really, really common thing, which will occur across various different openings, various different games that you play quite often. They bring the bishop out, and sometimes they'll take an f3 thinking that it is just an equal exchange of a bishop versus a knight. It is not exactly correct, and I'm going to show you why and how you make use of that. Anyway, let's start from the very beginning. So I'll just play some common opening moves so that we reach to the realistic position where black plays that. For example, say go d4 and bishop g4, one of the ways for black to play. And after you take on e5 here, black realizes that they can't really recapture on e5. I mean, they can, but it's bad. Because if they do so, we can then trade queens, forcing his king to move, losing the right to castle. After that, you can pick up this pawn on e5, and black is just completely devastating. Therefore, instead of recapture on e5, they realize that they get a first take on f3, and after you take, then they recapture back on e5, and they think that their position is absolutely fine, it's equal, almost symmetric, nothing bad for black, right? Wrong, because there was one critical issue. They traded off their light squared bishop. And if you know how to make use of that, you can win the game in 2 moves. And if not, well, then you just missed the mark. So how can you do that? For example, you can play bishop c4, for now threatening something like scholar's checkmate. Of course, they can cover that, but then here's the critical moment. You can play the move which wins the game, and it's not a move that most players play. Not bishop g5, not knight c3, not castling, not any other normal developing move. But you want to make use of the fact that black's light squares are weakened due to the fact that he traded off his light square bishop. So you play queen b3, targeting white squared weaknesses in his position. And black is already defenseless. You're threatening either to take on f7 and basically checkmate him within a few moves, or to pick up this pawn on b7 and then threaten the rook and also destroy his position. And black is already defenseless against these both threats. So that's how you win the game easily. Let's say he tries to defend it, you then grab this pawn on b7 threatening the rook. What can he do now? Let's say queen to c6, and you can attack in various different ways. Queen c8 could be an option, but in this case even stronger is bishop b5, skewing the queen, and because of this pin, black will have to give up the queen and just lose the game. So that's how you win, destroying black very quickly and easily. And notice that it was not a coincidence that white attacked light squares all the time. Let me get it back to the very start of this situation after black traded off light square bishops. Notice that white even plays all the moves on light squares. So play bishop c4, put in the bishop on the light square, attacking another light square. Black covers that, we swing to the left side, and now we're also putting our queen and the bishop on light squares, targeting both weaknesses in the light squares. So isn't this remarkable? Yes, because they're all weak due to the fact that he does not have that bishop on c8, right? If black had a bishop there, that would be not a problem at all. It would just defend this pawn. But without that bishop, that is an issue. He defends it, now we grab the pawn, again, pawn on the light square. We attack the rook on a light square. If he defends it, we go bishop b5, and notice that all these weaknesses that we are targeting here, they all are on the light squares as well as our lower pieces. So if you understand this concept that once his light square bishop came off the board, you can target his weaknesses in this color, and you can make use it very, very effectively with a quick attack. Once you know it, you know how to develop your winning attack. Here's another game, totally different opening, but completely same ideas. White started off with pawn e4, now we go into the French defense. White played for the advanced variation c5, c3, knight to c6. And in this case, one of the most played moves, especially on amateur level for white, is to go bishop b5. Now white sees that black is somewhat putting some pressure here, against white center, and they want to just eliminate this pressure. So they go bishop b5, aiming to trade off this knight in the next move. Now, for many players, this seems like just an equal exchange because classical chess tutorials taught us that a bishop and a knight are both worth 3 pawns approximately, so that's an equal exchange. Is that true? Not really. Now, for my Indian friends, correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, when chess originated approximately 1500 years ago, presumably in India, a bishop actually symbolized an elephant. And an elephant is stronger than a horse, so you do not want to accept this kind of a trade. I mean, unless you have some very good reason to, right? So do not make those kind of trades. Black goes queen b6, provoking white to make that trade, and now white takes on c6, black recaptures. Now, at first, it may seem as if nothing special happened. The position just remains to be about equal, the game goes on. But look at a couple shifts in the position. Right, first off, we know that light squared in the white's positions are weak and we want to take advantage of that. And black can do that by going bishop a6, which, puts the white king under a house arrest. It can't move, and I guess it's embarrassing. Now, besides that, we've got this semi-open b file. You can put your rook there and put pressure. And finally, because our pawn relocated closer to the center of the board, we increased our influence in the center, which is also nice. We know that central area is most important in chess, therefore if you can dominate there, that usually gives you an advantage. Therefore, to summarize, after white forced this exchange on c6, black got this strong bishop, which takes advantage of white's weak light squares. We've got the semi-open b file, and we strengthened our center, all thanks to white forcing that unmotivated exchange. Anyway, let's see what happened next. Here white realized that they can't develop a bishop because our queen is eyeing this b2 pawn, so they played b3. Now black decided to just develop. Our knight is aiming to this f5 square. White played bishop e3, black took on d4, white recaptured with the bishop, hoping that they've got a glimpse of hope. Now they're also doing something active, but black could shut it down with c5. Again, notice that this pawn used to be on b7 in the past, right? But white helped black to solidify his center. Now black can make use of this. Pushing the bishop all the way back. The bishop has to go. Now knight comes to f5, also putting some pressure here. White played knight d2 just to develop, and now pawn d4. Black is breaking open in the middle of the board and basically gets a winning position right away. Then just a couple moves. Now after an exchange, now the bishop is attacked. It's got to go. Then black plays bishop b4, putting the other pin. This time the knight can't move, and white is basically already quite paralyzed. They still can't castle because of our light square bishop. And they can't really do anything about that. He played rook c1, just trying to bring the rook into play at least. Black played queen b7, a mysterious move that white couldn't figure out, but to be completely honest, white is defenseless anyway. He played g4, trying to kick off the knight, but then queen e4 finished the game nicely. It turns out that the knight is pinned down to the king, therefore it can't capture our queen. And if so, that is nearly a checkmate. We're delivering check, and our bishop is cutting the king off. So we're creating these nice little cozy checkmate. I mean, of course, white can give up some material, but that'll delay the checkmate, but it is still a checkmate at the end of the day. So white is defenseless. Just to clarify, do I mean to say that you should never ever on earth trade your bishop for a knight? Now, of course not. It will depend on the position. Sometimes there is some particular benefit that you can gain out of this exchange, and that is alright. But what I'm saying is not forcing this unmotivated exchange when nothing motivated this exchange in the first place. Such as in this position, which came out of the queen's gambit. The most played move by black is, guess what? Yeah, it's bishop b4. Putting the bishop to the wrong square, and after that, after white covers with knight to c3, guess which move is the most common right here? Bishop takes c3. Now, this whole maneuver was completely unmotivated, right? Black could easily play anything else. And it is wrong just for all the reasons that we talked about previously. Now, you've got this dark square bishop, and for the lack of a counterpart, you can capitalize on the weakness of his dark squares. For instance, you can play bishop a3 and cut his king off so that it can castle. Even if it does castle, let's say immediately, you can still, in the future, make use of your stronger center because of your extra pawn there. So for instance, just to show you an example line, you can prepare and at some point push the pawn forward to e4, and now you've got a really beautiful pawn center. And it all happens thanks to you having this extra pawn on c3, which guards the pawn on d4. So otherwise it wouldn't be that easy for white to move forward. Black would just grab this pawn. But now it's defended, no problem for white. Plus, you can still capitalize on the weaknesses of his dark squares. You can just bring your bishop out to g5 in this case, putting this pin. And because black can't put his bishop on e7, because he doesn't have a dark square bishop any longer, that's a big issue. Now e5 is coming to win the knight over this pin. If queen moves away, you can always take there and speed up his pawns and expose his king, and basically black is defenseless. He's losing the game right now. So that's it. That's how you know how to make use of your opponent's mistakes, who mistakenly think that an elephant is equal to a horse. So now you know how to make use of that and to defeat them. Of course, not always your opponents will trade their bishop for a knight. Sometimes they'll just maintain this pin, and even if you push the bishop, they'll just drop it back and maintain the pin. What do you do then? You've got 4 main ways to make use of this pin effectively and to defeat your opponent, which I covered in this video, which you may wish to check it out now. Have a great rest of the day. Take care.